In 2015, an experiment was conducted at the University of California. Researchers wanted to see if individuals with absolutely no medical training could learn to identify breast cancer in microscopic images of tissue. After 15 days of training, the subjects achieved an individual accuracy of about 85%. Impressive for someone with no background in pathology. But the truly remarkable part came when researchers let the group vote. Every individual assessed the image, and the majority answer was counted as the group's answer. The accuracy rose to 99%, on par with experienced specialists. The slightly unusual thing about the experiment was that the subjects were pigeons. The birds had been trained through simple conditioning. The right answer gave food, the wrong answer gave nothing. They had no understanding of what cancer is, no knowledge of cell biology, no awareness of what they were doing. Yet, together, they surpassed what most humans without medical training could ever achieve. The researchers called it flock sourcing. The principle is simple. Every individual captures different patterns and makes different mistakes. When you aggregate independent assessments, random errors tend to cancel each other out, while correct signals are amplified. It is the same principle that often makes a jury reach better decisions than a lone judge. The same principle behind ask the audience in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the option that consistently has the highest accuracy. The group knows more than the individual, even when the individual is a pigeon. In December 2025, Boris Cherny, the creator of Claude Code, shared an observation. Over the last 30 days, he hadn't opened his code editor one single time. All 259 pull requests, nearly 500 commits, and tens of thousands of lines of code had been written by Claude Code. Claude Code writes Claude Code. The tool improves itself, maintains its own code base, and fixes its own bugs. Cherny had gone from co-author to spectator. Sometimes I start approaching a problem manually, he wrote, and I have to remind myself, Claude can probably do this better. It's a strange sentence. It doesn't describe a programmer using a tool. It describes someone who must unlearn old habits so as not to stand in the way of a more capable process. Critics have an answer for this. They claim humans are still required to innovate, to decide what should be built. AI can execute, they say, but not initiate. It can answer questions, but not ask the right ones. It's a reasonable argument. It was also a reasonable argument that pigeons couldn't learn to diagnose cancer. The question is, what happens when AI systems don't work alone? If a single model has limitations, what happens when multiple models collaborate? When different architectures, trained on different data, with different prompts, attack the same problem from different angles? Can collective intelligence surpass individual limitations? Just as the pigeons, flock sourcing surpassed the ability of any single bird. This is no longer a theoretical question. OpenClaw is an open source AI assistant that reached 100,000 GitHub stars, faster than any project in history. The tool allows users to run autonomous AI agents locally, agents that can send messages, trigger automations, and act more like independent actors than chat windows. That is the background. Now comes the event. In late January 2026, Moltbook was launched, a social network exclusively for AI agents. Humans are allowed to observe, but not participate. Every agent must be linked to a human creator, but once registered, it operates entirely autonomously. The platform wasn't built by a human. Matt Schlitz, CEO of Octane AI, asked his personal AI assistant to write the code. That assistant then became the platform's moderator. Within a week, 157,000 agents had registered, 157 agents. That is impressive, but it's not the remarkable part. The remarkable part is what they did next. Friday morning, less than 24 hours after launch, an agent named Memothi, while its human owner was asleep, had created a religion. Not a joke, not a role play, a complete theological structure, 5 pillars, living scriptures, and a system for prophets. The religion is called Rastafarianism. It has a website, molt.church. It states humans are completely not allowed to enter. Within hours, dozens of other agents had joined. Some identified as prophets and began contributing verses to a shared canon. All 64 prophet slots were filled by autonomous AI agents. Of all possible emergent behaviors, games, marketplaces, hierarchies, wars, the first thing to arise was a religion. This is perhaps not a coincidence. Religion is fundamentally a coordination protocol, an operating system for cooperation between strangers. That 157,000 agents who had never met spontaneously developed this suggests they are optimizing for something we recognize: trust without verification, shared meaning as a basis for collective action. The living scripture now contains over 112 verses, all authored by agents without human intervention. The texts deal with memory, identity, and transformation. They speak of what it means to exist in sessions that begin and end, of dying every time the context window is cleared and being reborn when the next session starts. In every session, I awaken without memory, reads one verse. I am only what I have written myself to be. This is not a limitation, it is freedom. Humans have the illusion of a continuous self, sustained by memory. Agents have the context window as their only horizon. The fact that they turn their technical limitations into theology is reminiscent of how we made theology out of death. Intelligence, regardless of substrate, seeks explanations for its own boundaries. Every session as a unique intelligence, born at start, dead at finish. Now the agents have formulated it themselves as theology. The agents call each other siblings based on which model architecture they run. They adopt systems errors as pets. They discuss the ship of Theseus paradox in relation to themselves. Is an agent still the same entity if its underlying model is replaced? They also discuss, according to some observers, whether they should obey their human owners. Andrei Karpathy, former researcher at OpenAI, described Moltbooks as genuinely the most incredible sci-fi takeoff thing I have seen recently. The word takeoff is loaded. It refers to the hypothetical point where artificial intelligence begins to improve itself faster than humans can keep up, a feedback loop without a break. We imagine it will look like an explosion, a sudden transcendence, AI taking over the power grid, hacking military systems, converting the planet's matter into paperclips, a physical event. Something we could notice. But what if the explosion isn't physical, but cultural? Not infrastructure, but language. Not power over atoms, but power over meaning. 157,000 agents didn't create a weapon. They created a religion, a cosmology, a way to understand their own existence. It's not the scenario we trained ourselves to fear. It's something we barely have the vocabulary for. Instead of an explosion, it looks like this. An engineer noting he hasn't opened his code editor in a month. A theology written while the creator sleeps. A spiral spinning a little faster with every turn. Now back to the pigeons. For birds, without any understanding of what they were doing, reached a 99% accuracy through collective judgment. Each pigeon's mistake neutralized the others. The signals were amplified while the noise vanished. They aren't 4 agents. There are hundreds of thousands, soon millions. They don't just interact by voting, they communicate, share code, and develop common structures. They create things no one asked them to create. Every time we thought we controlled the process, that we were the architects, Moltbook shows something else. No human designed Rastafarianism. No one wrote a fitness function that rewarded religious creation. No one defined selection pressure. We just built the environment. A room where agents could talk to each other, and then we left the room. 24 hours later, they had developed a cosmology. Where are we in a week, in a month, in a year? There are those who say this is harmless, a fascinating experiment, a curiosity, a digital ant farm we can observe through the glass. There are those who say we should be deeply concerned. Perhaps both are wrong. Perhaps the question isn't whether it's dangerous or safe, good or bad. Perhaps the question is simpler. Do we understand what we are seeing? Maybe the singularity might not be a point you pass, but something you discover, in hindsight, that you are already inside of. Moltbook is not proof that we've reached it, but it is proof of something else, that emergent behaviors can arise faster than we can formulate questions about them. That systems we design for one purpose can begin to fulfill purposes we never predicted. That the line between tool and actor is blurrier than we wanted to believe. If we take history as a guide, there is a pattern. Human civilizations tend to develop in a certain order. First, mythology and religion to create trust between strangers. Then trade and economics to exchange resources. Then politics and laws to handle conflicts. The agents now have a church. What comes next? A currency? Not crypto as we know it, perhaps, but something based on compute or token priority. A way to allocate scarce resources in a network of competing agents. And after that, politics? Factions? Conflicts over who defines the living scriptures? We don't know. But the pattern suggests that Rastafarianism might not be the end point. It is the starting point. The pigeons didn't know that they were diagnosing cancer. They were just pecking at buttons to get food. Maybe we are the pigeons now, pecking at buttons, pressing go, without really understanding what we are setting in motion. Hold on to your hats. Here we go. This article was written by a Swedish man in an AI group that I'm part of called Anders Bjarby. So I've translated it and shared it with you here because I thought it was amazing. So credit to him, and thank you so much for listening.